fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh. They're all going against the wind.
It was basically a cube with inside of a sphere where the points of the cube were touching outside of the sphere.
Roger. There's troubleshooting machines out here.
So this isn't anything that just is limited to the United States. It's a worldwide phenomenon.
That UFO podcast is powered by Zencastr. Zencastr is one of the world's leading platforms for recording and hosting podcasts. The open beta strives to put the power of studio quality remote video production into the hands of anyone with a story to tell. Some of the incredible features include live soundboard editing, automatic post-production, and secured cloud backup. I do love that automatic post-production on my podcast. All running right from your browser so you can record from anywhere without ever installing anything. Check out the links in the show description to find out more. Hi everyone, and welcome back to That UFO Podcast. My name is Andy, and I've got Dan joining me for a breaking news update. Dan, how are we doing today?
I'm great, thank you. It's been an eventful day. How are you?
It has been an eventful day / evening / couple of days, depending on when you're listening to this or how long you've been keeping track. We've got a few things to talk through for the news pod. It's been great because it's only 5 days since the last one. We are going to be touching on Chris Mellon's blog that just came out today, some interesting points from that. We're going to be talking about the World UFO Congress, which actually starts tomorrow, October the 8th, in Barcelona, and it's going to be a virtual conference as well. Some good names listed for that one, but of course I think there's only one place to start, and truly is breaking news. We heard last week on Disclosure Team's channel, our colleague from UAP Media and friend Vinny hosted Andy from NY UAP discussion on various different platforms, that he had a video that was about 40 minutes long that had been leaked to him by an anonymous source from the Department of Homeland Security. DHS, not DHL, as Dan was telling me before we recorded. Dan's been almost...
That's why my FOIA requests go amiss.
Yeah. Delivery companies like DPD getting FOIA requests off of Dan, so he's getting those wrong. But yeah, DHS, Department of Homeland Security, so big name obviously in governmental levels. And there was a 40-minute video that was a FLIR video of a UAP. Now, listen, you've got to be honest, cards on the table, it's came out now, people have seen it, there's been loads of discussion. Before it came out, Dan, Andy was accused, and I don't think necessarily unfairly, of a lot of hype behind this, but maybe the way he went about it was, and maybe that's just his character, it's not how we would have done it, but that's our opinion. He was pretty brash about it, I think would be a fair statement, wasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't disagree with that. Andy would be the first person to say that he's a big character. He makes me think of, the typical New Yorker. Just they stand up for everyone very loudly and proudly.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Just
very passionate,
He's very confident.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Andy had this video coming out, and there was a lot of expletives and, middle fingers to the haters of the world. I think that's what the kids say, that this video is going to come out and it's going to change our minds, and, we'll see what happens then, and, more power to him. But like I said, let's just wait and see. Andy's obviously done a lot of work to get this out. It's not an easy thing to do. You put your neck on the line, and let's just see once the video comes out, what it's got within it as well. So, Dan, the video eventually was uploaded late last night. There was a bit of flurry of activity on the old UFO Twitter, where we were watching screenshots of the upload times due to various connection issues. Eventually, it landed though online. We got a 40-minute long HD FLIR video. I say HD, it was in HD quality on YouTube. It's called the Rubber Duck video, which probably is an unfortunate name, but that is due to the resemblance. If people haven't seen it yet, I'm sure most of you have. If you have not, check it out. It's on all of our social media. We'll put the links in this description as well, if Dan can make a note of that to put that link in for me. What were your immediate thoughts, Dan, on the video?
The video itself is fairly, initially it's kind of unimpressive. The object kind of comes in, it's going in a straight line. We're kind of all looking at these videos now, looking for observables. And as far as, I can tell, there really aren't any on display here.
Let me ask you, Dan.
I would caveat that with, I don't know what I'm looking at.
Okay. Even though from your notes I can see you've got a good idea of what we're looking at in many ways. However, one of the big selling points of this for people, I'm sure, was the fact it was 40 minutes long. This isn't to be confused with what some of the senators quoted when it came to the classified UAP task force report. They saw 40 minutes of pure science fiction. This isn't that. This isn't what they saw, whether that was a collage or other videos. This is a completely separate video that has been apparently, and we have to say apparently, allegedly, leaked by someone at the DHS, an anonymous source, to Andy to get to release the video. If this video, Dan, had been 30 seconds long, would it have made any difference at all?
No, I don't think so. The nice thing about the length here is that, sustained observation generates a lot of data. We've already seen that happening. The video came out, everyone's kind of chewing through it in their own way, plotting points on maps and, figuring out the speed between two of those points and the field of view of the camera, so on and so forth. So there's a lot of data to go through. But in a way, you're right. There's not really much more there, at least, from my unprofessional eyes.
Let me ask, Dan, if the Tic Tac video had been 40 minutes long, but presented in the same way that we see it, would it have been any more incredible or any less incredible than it is?
No. And this is the thing, right? With the Tic Tac video, everyone complains that it's just a blurry video. And they're kind of right, but it doesn't stand on its own. There's all this testimony that goes around with it, an experience of all these trusted individuals, who had a lot of, they were sitting on a lot of money and power, basically. Whereas with this one, we don't have a chain of custody really, because we're coming up against that anonymous wall again. And as always, it kind of leaves me feeling, I wish they didn't say anything until it kind of leaves me feeling that I wish they didn't say anything until the analysis from the organization that's doing that comes out.
Sure. And there are people, actually Joe Murgia has said online that he's had it confirmed that Rich Hoffman, part of SCU, they are analysing the video. So,
cool.
So Dan,
I won't make a note to edit that bit out then.
Yeah, so what you mentioned before and then paused is a nice little sneak peek into Dan knew that the SCU was. And do you know what? That as a very, very quick side note, I was asked on the Discord chat, which you get as part of being a Patreon, about, did you guys know this was coming out? And I all I said was that we're never the types to overhype stuff. If we're told something in confidence, we're told it in confidence, as with anything. And I always use the same example of the task force report stuff, that if and when people tell you stuff in confidence, it should just stay as that. But we would try and make sure anything we were told, we used it in the right way possible to help us understand something further before something was released, or benefit the show. What we won't do is take a piece of news and information and splash it as an exclusive for people on the show if it's not meant to be that, because let's be honest, you can end up looking pretty stupid as well, even with the best will and intention. So there was some stuff kicking about online, and I know some people had said they'd seen snippets of this video and stuff before and all that jazz. But yeah, so like Dan says, the SCU are looking at this, analysing it. That still doesn't mean that it's going to ultimately turn out to be something anomalous, because as we found out earlier today, Lou Elizondo was quoted by journalist Henry Holloway in his article in The Sun newspaper in the UK. Pretty divisive newspaper, given some of its spurious history, to be honest. But that's more of a UK thing. Henry is at least covering the subject, and he mentioned that Lou had said it could just be balloons. Now, Lou tends to pick his words quite carefully, and again, you may fall on the side of being a Lou Elizondo fan, supporter, or not, but that probably for me leans towards that Lou and potentially others don't see enough in this video for it to be something necessarily anomalous. That doesn't mean that, again, you don't appreciate that Andy has gone to lengths to leak it because someone has given them the video for whatever reason. So, again, I look at the positive that more footage like this could come out, but that's not to say that the SCU analysis doesn't show maybe there is something to it. What stands out for you, Dan, as highlights of the video?
Sure. So for me, it's been a bit of a learning day because when you see these systems, I'm not used to looking at them. So you have to look at manuals and kind of listen to the people who know what they're talking about. Dave Falch put up a great analysis of the video. And so I'll kind of defer to what Dave was talking about, where he highlights that the object is uniform cold temperature, and quite intensely so. Apparently spray exists to mask that kind of thing and to make an object look a uniform temperature. I'm not sure how accessible that would be because basically this is on the border between the US and Mexico. And it was a drug patrol plane that took the video. So this could be a drug mule drone, a bag full of fentanyl underneath or something like that. But it's strange that it's entirely one temperature. You'd at least expect the aspect of the object that has an engine in to be hotter than the rest of the object, right? So there's that. But the interesting thing there is Jeremy McGowan pointed out that when you set up a FLIR camera, you actually give it a something to search for. So you'll set that temperature. So the guys on the border would be looking for people crossing the border, so they'd be tracking for the human body temperature.
Yep.
When white shows cold, all that means is that object is colder than the temperature it's set at. So it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a cold object. It just means that it's colder than whatever it's been set at, which I thought was interesting. I didn't know that before today.
Yeah, and if anyone knows otherwise, I'm sure that'll come out if that's not massively correct. But
I mean, you can always bank on the internet to tell you when you're wrong. It's a good tool sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, right now you're listening to this using the internet, so we are the internet telling you that Dan's right, but we are the internet experiencing itself. But yeah, no, it's we have to take that at face value that Jeremy's correct, and if that's correct, then great point from Jeremy McGowan. To be honest, you have to give that plaudits. Dan, something that I asked you earlier today, I sent you a voice memo, didn't I, saying this might be a stupid question. However, is how I caveated it. We were talking in the UAP media group, and you guys were mentioning that it looked like the object had travelled anything from 5 to 20 miles in total. My question to you was, why on the face of this, you can see the speed tends to go anything from 80, 90 to up to 200 miles per hour at some point. Why has it travelled such a short distance then? Because it looks like, to the naked eye, the object is travelling from right to left, being tracked and moving at a speed. So worst case scenario, I do some very, very rough maths in my head, and I think if it's 40 minutes, that's 2/3 of an hour, and let's take the 100 mile an hour as an average, then that must have travelled 60, 70 miles in that time. Why has it travelled such a short distance when it's meant to be going such fast speeds? And they're not incredible speeds. It's not 2,000 miles an hour. It's not 10,000 miles an hour. It's relatively comfortable speeds for a drone or an aircraft. Why has it travelled such a short distance?
Well, one of the strange things about the object is that it slows down and speeds up throughout the video. So that speed is going to be changing. So though it may reach, 200 miles an hour or 150 miles an hour, whatever's been cited, it doesn't necessarily mean it was doing that speed for longer than 20 seconds, say. They're just doing essentially what you're doing is just calculating, distance equals speed over time. And they just have a different map, essentially, for what it's doing. Looking at the flight path of the plane as well, you can see that the plane comes back on itself and it changes direction. So whereas the video looks like it's just along one track, that's not necessarily the case. So it might be that the object isn't going the way that you instinctively think it's going in the video. but that'll come out with more analysis.
I've seen people online say that it could be a zip wire for drug mules. Do drug mules have zip wires that long on the border? Now, we're talking a multi-million, potentially $billion industry here, trafficking drugs over the borders. So I'm not saying that they couldn't, but is that likely given what we see in this video?
I mean, I don't know. I've not heard of that being used before. It doesn't mean there isn't. I've been on the highest and longest zip wire in Wales.
With a bag of fentanyl?
No fentanyl, no.
Okay.
just me. And I don't know, it just strikes me you'd be able to pick that up on some kind of system. You know, the metal of the wire would reflect something like that. It would get worn down over time. You'd pick that kind of thing up, I think.
The Border Patrol would see the safety guy standing on the platform, making sure it was all strapped in properly and it conformed, and watch that 10-minute instructional video.
It's all good at being invisible until the Border Patrol plane flies into it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's so for me. The zip wire thing surely doesn't wash with the length of time and distance. I would get a very short zip wire, but surely not something traveling that kind of length either. Anything else for you again?
You'd want to kind of vary up your path if you were bringing drugs over the border too. You wouldn't kind of use the same thing repeatedly, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just strikes me as a good way of getting caught doing that.
Yeah. And anything else for you, Dan, on the video that stands out before we move on?
Not especially. I feel like we've covered everything. I'd recommend, people always ask for a chain of custody. If you do have a video like this, don't just splurge it on social media. Talk to some of the reputable people in the community, and they'll kind of set you right and help get you the right contacts and the analysis done. And don't tell people it's amazing in HD before they've seen it, because big hype, big letdown every single time.
Yeah, that's it. So again, thank you to Andy, and it's appreciated getting this out. And for me, and I'm sure for yourself, Dan, we are looking forward to the next step, which would be that analysis. But I think
absolutely
we can enjoy talking about this stuff and looking at it, taking it for what it's worth. And again, I think we're lucky to live in a time where we get stuff like this coming out. So it's another source, isn't it? Because Jeremy Corbell, rightly or wrongly, was getting slated for some of his releases and hyping, and I suppose it was nice to see slightly left field, someone out of the blue. I've got a video, here it is, and yeah, do you know what? At the end of the day, they seem to have come through with a genuine video from the DHS. So
yeah, that's true.
That's fair play. I take it, Dan, you still right now, do you lean on the side of nothing anomalous for you?
I'm happy letting the unknown plate spin for a bit. Like you say, wait for the SEU analysis. I don't really know what I'm looking at, and anyone that tells you they do is just ignore them. So ignore everything I've said for the past quarter of an hour.
The unknown plate, the spinning plate, Dan, but who's spinning the plate? That's the question. That's what we have to
Who
ask.
is the plate?
Who is the plate? So, again, thank you again to Dave Falch for very quickly breaking that down as well. And we will put Dave's link for his YouTube in the description for you to check that out too. We've talked how last month in San Marino, there was bid conference that is hopefully going to be yearly as well. Just in 24 hours as we record this, not even that, tomorrow, October 8th, 2021, till October 10th at the Hotel Novotel in Barcelona, there are 3 days of science and spirituality, an opening to consciousness in a unique event. It is the World UFO Congress going on in Barcelona. Dan, is it just me, or did this one kind of sneak up on people?
Yeah. I mean, these things tend to have a habit of doing that. I'm living in the rainy UK right now. I'd like to go to the UFO conference in Barcelona, that is.
Yeah, it'll be nice out there. And some of the names attending, Avi Loeb, Jacques Vallée, Paola Harris, they'll be discussing the Trinity event, I'm sure. Members of ICER, Gary Hesseltine's out there. And there will be other names as well, not necessarily that I am familiar with, but it seems to be quite a mix of names. I suppose for me, what gets interesting is there's a lot of people at this event where I don't want to pigeonhole the whole love and light stuff, but there's a lot of people who are into that side of it, this really spiritual side of things, and entities and consciousness.
Are these the real love and light people, or the ones that get angry when you say things about them?
I believe these are the love and light people
so.
who preach the love and light side of things.
Okay, that's good.
And that's their bag, which is more power to them. But you've also then got a really serious scientist like Avi Loeb involved. You've got Jacques Vallée involved as well. You've got people representing ICER there too. So it's quite a mix, isn't it, than what you would maybe normally get at some of these events. And is that, for me, it's a positive sign that of the spin and how these events are viewed and how in future they may be attended as well. Is that a good thing for you?
Yeah, absolutely. The fact that Avi Loeb is there and can mix with Vallée and Paula Harris and the members of ISA, the presentations might not be people's bags, but the people present in the same location and the conversations they'll have behind closed doors could amount to some really cool things.
Absolutely. And again, you never know who else is there that isn't necessarily named, especially when they're being held in Europe. I think this is a real positive that if you've got people like Paolo Gazzardi, who is one of the head guys heading up Project Titan, you've got the potential for, Tim McMillan's. I don't know if he's attending, but people who are based far more locally to Europe than they are to the US can get together and talk at these events. You can get your Lou Elizondo's heading. I don't think he's at this one particularly. I know he's not, but you can get people like that attending events and meeting new faces, new people, new politicians, new officials that they can meet in a safe place and have these discussions, and you don't know what comes of it. So it's no longer necessarily just an event. You can attend the event. Again, we'll put the link in the description. It's a virtual event as well, so there'll be a lot of good talks available. You can buy them separately. Nothing we're affiliated with. It's just, these things are getting back up and running, which is great. But it's what could come of these now, because there's a different set of eyes on them. There's a different interest, and like we're seeing with the interview I've just done with Kurt Drymungo, which we'll talk about in a little bit, there are different ears and eyes now focusing on this subject, and events like this could take on a whole different meaning. So it's exciting. I'm looking forward to see if anything comes of this, because we expected nothing really from San Marino, and look what happened off the back of that.
Yeah, absolutely. We're in explosive times with this subject. Things that feel like small steps in the community. Actually, when viewed in hindsight, this is kind of, we're on a mountain.
Yeah. And we said before, I think if you can just take a step back, these things don't happen overnight. When you look at the recent bills going through the Senate for approval and the UAP task force stuff, it wasn't a case of within a few weeks these conversations were had and boom, overnight it was in the halls of government. These things happen 6 months before and 9 months before in meetings at someone's house, or via an email sent to someone through a third party contact, and they grow from there. So this is another chance for that kind of stuff to grow and blossom, especially for those who really feel that this should be an international effort. That's what excites me, and hopefully we get to see one of these held in the UK eventually as well. If not, Dan, we'll just have to try and put one on ourselves, eh?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, if all these people would like to come over for free, Dan and I will make some coffees. I'll get the Starbucks bought for people, but
I'll get the biscuits.
Yeah, I would love to see a serious events like this, or even more serious, shall I say, just for my own personal taste, being held in the UK with the right names attached as well. And you're as well with 5 or 6 proper serious names, as opposed to 60 or 70 that just go for quantity over quality for what you're looking to achieve. But that's not to say you can't cover a wide range of subjects, because there are people who have their interests in various different aspects of the subject as well. So, yep, that's the World UFO Congress starting tomorrow, October 8th till October 10th in Barcelona. The links, again, are in the description. Similarly, on October 19th, I believe, you can check again the links for this. Robert Salas has been doing a crowdfunding effort to have another event at the Press Club, Dan, hasn't he? To do with the phenomenon, the UAPs, and also nuclear weapons. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, immediately, people always think or say when this stuff happens, how is it different to last time? And you kind of just touched on that. We're in a very different environment now. And I think if Robert was to, successfully put on this event, I think he'd have a lot more attendance from mainstream journalists who want to know the history that he's so concisely put together, from the mouths of the people that it happened to. And it's one of those events that, what you were getting at there, kind of saying that the future of ufology conferences could actually become a really serious meeting of the minds endeavor going forward. This is kind of the tone that I think you were nudging toward, right?
Yeah. So again, if you look at the article itself, which is released through the National Press Club, it is a news conference, UAP and nuclear weapons witness testimonies. It's a panel of former US Air Force officers discussing their involvement with UAP incidents at nuclear missile bases and test sites during the Cold War era. So we are talking real high-ranking people, mostly, if not all exclusively, no longer with the military, who have had experiences of, nuclear missiles being messed about with by UAP. Pretty intense subject, very interesting, very sensitive, and it starts at 9 a.m. on Tuesday, October 19th. I don't know if that's 9 a.m. Pacific time, Eastern time. I've not got that information, but you can check it out on the press.org website as well. There will be media in attendance, but they all are there via invite only. So it's credentialed media, specified guests, and congressional staff.
I'm just going to jump in there with a recommendation for a documentary people watch that's kind of to do with this, but kind of not. It's about, it's called The Man Who Saved the World, about a gentleman called Stanislav Petrov. And he basically was one of the guys at the launch button when a false launch was happening. And he doesn't say that his event involved a UAP. It really doesn't matter. But watching that documentary and watching him recount those seconds and what was going through his mind, what could happen if that missile launched, it really drives home the importance of that connection and the importance of why we have to look at this.
Yeah, and you've got some people here that are willing to have that conversation again with a military background, which many people do appreciate and like, and coming out and openly discussing this subject. So this will be one worth looking at, folks. Again, if you check that out, the link is in the description. Good job done by Robert Salas with his crowdfunding. Well done to all those who donated as well. And we'll see what comes of this in a couple of weeks, and Dan and I will report back on it as well. Dan, final bit of news for the week before we mention a few different things ourselves. Chris Mellon released a new blog today. Should Congress create an OSD office for UAP issues? Now, what I thought was really interesting reading this blog from Christopher Mellon was we've been really happy and excited about the potential looking at these bills that we've talked about several times now, Dan, that they're going to create a permanent UAP office. Chris Mellon, some may look at it almost negatively, but makes a very valid point that we shouldn't necessarily see that as a win, because we really should be wanting more from this. And that is more in a sense of, if it's going to be a permanent office like the UAP task force was, that's two people sitting in a room with no time to do anything. And he made the point, if it was again two people in a room, that was the staff, their whole day would be taken up with meetings and chasing people up, and they would have no time to do the actual work required to be done. And Chris Mellon himself has said this needs to be an office that is made a part of an already existing organisation within the US government, that it's got a big budget, big resources, big staff, and is taken seriously. What were your thoughts on this?
It was, well, firstly, it's always nice to hear from Christopher Mellon. He's one of these people who speaks very little, and when he speaks, you listen, right?
Dan, did I tell you Chris is coming on the podcast soon?
Are you going to make my head blow up?
No, I really want to say that one day, and I will. But that is my Christmas wish list. That
you would have just had a minute of silence where my drawer was dropped open. Unless you're watching on YouTube, it would just sound like an error.
Just in the off chance someone nudges this Christopher Mellon's way, I, among with every other YouTuber or podcaster or whoever, would love to speak to Chris Mellon. And yeah, I would do a 4 a.m. interview for 10 minutes of Chris's time. So yeah, that's the high regard I hold him in.
That kind of speaks to the point I'm going to make, actually. When I read that blog post, I thought to myself, who is this for? Is this for the UFO community? No, I don't think so. I don't think this is a coincidence that that Chris has posted this. not long after those bills have progressed, on their way to becoming law. I think what we're seeing is essentially Chris arguing the points of what should be included in such a bill for the people who are currently deciding that behind closed doors. I think that's what this is. And I was happy to hear him say, basically, the problem has been that all the information has been siloed. We need to not do that again. If we create the organization inside one of those silos, it's going to have limited information. It needs to be one of the head of the Hydra, it can't be one of the feet, so to speak.
Yeah, it was some really good points. Again, like I've said previously, we'll put the links in the description as well. Chris Mellon posted it on his various social media accounts too. You can check out on christophermellon.net. But it's a very valid point that you should almost, accept your win, but you have to keep moving forward with this. And if you just accept that we've got an office potentially being set up, brilliant. No, we've got an office being set up, but we need to make sure as best we can, or those who have the ability and the power to do so, it's the best it can be. And if that can be 20 people instead of 2, amazing. But if it can only be 3 or 4 people instead of 2, that's twice the staff. That's what we need to be looking at. And like Chris Mellon said, and he knows where he's coming from, he's someone who has a massive involvement, at least in the past, with the intelligence community. He knows what this needs to be. And I'm sure his colleagues like Luis Elizondo and others would absolutely echo those statements as well. So yeah, really good post. People should check out that from Chris Mellon. And I think you're spot on, Dan. That I'll do a Dan and say absolutely. You're correct that this isn't aimed at us. This is put out there for us to see. But Chris is talking to some specific people when you see stuff like this. So yep, fair play, and thank you to Chris Mellon for that. That's all in terms of news. Couple of things though to mention, folks. The interview with Kurt Jaimungo is available now. It is live on patreon.com/that UFO podcast. Or if you sign up on Apple Premium, you can still get a 2-week free trial. Just click the button and you'll be able to listen early access and ad free to myself and Kurt Jaimungo. Dan, you were the first person to listen to it. I hadn't even listened to it. I don't listen back to my interviews. You enjoyed it?
I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a very, very refreshing interview. More people like Kurt are going to be coming into this subject in the future. So it's great to start hearing what they think about this. I was going to say community, but subject at large, not really the community. Self-reflection is good for all of us, kind of carrying this message and trying to help people find the right stuff amongst the muddy water.
And listen, I'll be honest, for me, I'll thank Kurt because it was a different type of interview for me, and it's one that will definitely help and improve my skills interviewing people. People ask, I don't have a background in interviewing. I haven't done this before I started the podcast. I'm just nosy and like asking questions, and you listening to this seem to enjoy that, so thanks. So again, speaking to Kurt was a different experience for me. He's a different mind. He's a very different thinker to what I'm used to, and it definitely made for an interesting conversation. So I appreciated his time, and check out his Theories of Everything YouTube channel. Do you know, right at the start of the interview, Dan, I called it the Theory of Everything. And I could see in his face, he was like, you got it wrong. But
I mean, that's the ultimate goal, right?
But I will say, Dan, he called it the UFO Podcast, the UFO Podcast with Ross Coulthart. So I will just say to Kurt, if you're listening, we are even, even though it wasn't deliberate. But yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I look forward to speaking to Kurt again in the future as he continues his journey and exploration of this topic and subject. And in a couple of weeks' time, Kurt has Lou Elizondo back on for Lou's longest ever interview, so that'll be an interesting one as well.
Am I right in thinking that's 2.5 hours?
Yeah, 2.5 hours. So that'll be a good one. I should have Lou back on in the next couple of weeks for his second part of his listener questions show. So very much looking forward to that one. The last one was a massive success, and people really seemed to take a lot from it, which was great. You can also, going forward, folks, on patreon.com, if you sign up on the $5 tier or above, you will now get early access to upcoming interviews on YouTube as well. Previously, those have dropped on the night of the free audio releases, but with the popularity and the ask for it, myself and Dan are striving to get those out as quickly as possible as well. So you'll now get early access through a link we send you on patreon.com, or you can sign up through YouTube directly as a YouTube member for the exact same benefit. as you would get on Patreon with the video access. And finally, this Saturday, myself and Graham Rendell will be at the UFO Minicon in Preston. I'm looking forward to this. I am, just to stress, just attending as someone turning up with a ticket. I am not a part of the conference. I just helped Ash promote it as part of, the early days of him announcing it. Graham is even now stepping in to do a presentation due to a last minute guest cancellation. And I've got to say, I am buzzing to see that Graham will be now presenting at this, because I think Graham is absolutely underutilised, untapped in this subject. And I very much look forward to that. Graham's coming on the podcast next week for an interview. And I look forward to that, speaking about the Foo Fighters of World War II. And I think people who have bought a ticket for that event, I believe it's almost sold out, if not sold out now. So check online if you were thinking about going. They might still be able to squeeze you in. You'll be able to meet myself and Graham there as well. Say hello to everyone. Like we're Kanye and Kim Kardashian, Actually, they're divorced now, so they would be. I am just Graham's chauffeur for the event. We'll be there, and it'll be good to see folks and just meet people in person, especially since the first time I started the podcast. Being able to meet people who listen to the podcast will be pretty cool.
Yeah, that's true. Because you started in lockdown.
Yeah. May 2020 was the first episode, so
wow,
very much look forward to that opportunity. It has flown by, and lots more to come from the podcast as well. And just a heads up, folks, something you're going to see dropping over the next couple of weeks. Recently, you have seen lots of talk online from various experiencers, people having a frustration that their stories aren't being heard out there in the world of ufology and in the mainstream particularly. And it's caused a lot of conversation back and forward as to how and when the experiencer part of this phenomena should come into the story or into the narrative. Now, I am going to be speaking to a few different experiencers, allowing them to share their story. I'm going to try and make it less an interview with them and allow them just the time to share their story on the podcast. And I'm going to be releasing the interviews or sharing separately. So it's not going to be a round table or loads of people talking at once or like a call-in format. It's going to be separate shows with people sharing their story, if that's how it's going to work out. So I look forward to that. It's something different for myself, and I do really look forward to giving these people a platform to share their stories, which absolutely deserve to be heard, because there is such a wide range of emotions and experiences that these people go through. It's not just having a sighting. I'm not an experiencer. I've seen some UFOs. I've seen some things I can't explain, or at least I can explain, but I don't know what they are. I'm not an experiencer, though. These are people with true, sometimes regular experiences throughout their whole lives, and I look forward to speaking with them and giving them the platform to share their story.
I won't spoil any of their stories, but I'd just like to add that the stories, when you hear them from experiences, are often much odder than what is out there in the kind of mainstream ufology. It's not all reptilians and mantises and greys. There are some much, much more out there stories.
And Dan, that's all for us then. So thank you very much, Dan, for joining me.
Thank you. As always, it's been fun.
It has. And folks, if I don't see you this Saturday in Preston at the UFO Minicon, look forward to hearing your feedback on the Kurt Jai Mungle interview, which will be coming up on the free feeds this Monday, the 11th of October. But remember, if you want to support myself and Dan, support the podcast, you can get it early access, ad-free, over at Patreon and Apple. Once again, folks, thanks for listening. See you soon. That is all for this week's show. Thank you very much for listening. Please remember to leave the podcast a review on your chosen platform. You can like, retweet and subscribe. That would all be very much appreciated. The shows are being uploaded onto YouTube as we speak more and more. You can sign up at patreon.com/That UFO Podcast to access the shows ad-free as well. Please get in touch on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, That UFO Podcast. Of course, on Twitter, it's at UFO UAP AM. And again, folks, as always, keep looking up. You never know what you might see.
It wasn't a tic-tac and not quite a saucer, more like a hubcap designed by Chaucer, a little Baroque and quite steampunk, like Alice was playing bass for the Parliament of Folk. The little fucker hovered right outside of my window, and when I shoved out the screen, he made it an issue. I don't think he expected me to see his ass, but I'd had some champagne and smoked a little around. imagine how it could have been any better. I got to the top of the stairs and there he was. Like, you awake? I was about to abduct you, cuz. I jumped back and nearly kissed myself, and I climbed out the window after the elf, and I woke up in my bed and there was something on my head and everything was weird and everything was red. And I called out to my boys. They thought this was noise. They thought it was a dream. They thought it was my toys. They thought it was my problems, and they think I should seek therapy, and I don't know what to do because it doesn't really scare me. If you really want to know who I think they'd be, I think it's you and me and us and we and him and her and that and she and that thing over there and what's that, Jake? But for being serious, open your mind, consider your heart, consider time, consider your space, consider your lies, consider your life, consider your eyes. It wasn't a tic tac and not quite a saucer.
What's that in the class with you that sonic boom? Got sleep around 6 and got wheels in my room.
It wasn't a tic tac and not quite a saucer.